revealed. How one single dad janitor's unexpected act transformed a desperate woman's life forever. Tom pushed his mop across the dull linoleum floor of the school, the rhythmic swish reverberating through the empty halls. He was used to this grind cleaning after events while his mind lingered on the future of his bright-eyed daughter, Emily. At 35, many dismissed him as just another blue-collar worker. Yet deep within, he held a burning desire for something greater. He wanted Emily to dream big, escape the confines of their modest life. But thoughts of their home, of bills stacked high and the pressure crushing him, drew him down a somber path. Tom longed for his own recognition but felt trapped, ensnared in this routine, tethered to the janitor's closet, the stench of bleach wafting like a ghostly reminder of unfulfilled dreams. On the other side of town, Sarah jittered in her seat at the law firm meeting, heart racing and palms sweating, as her ideas for promotion were brushed aside by colleagues with ease. The dismissive laughter of her peers was a painful reminder of her insignificant status, an underappreciated paralegal struggling to make ends meet. With the weight of bills and her son, Marcus, and aspirations of moving up in the firm tantalizing yet out of reach, despair wormed its way into her soul. Torn between duty and dreaming of climbing higher, a fog closed in on her ambition, stifling any hope of validation. After the crushing meeting, she forced a smile and put one foot in front of the other, attending the parent-teacher night for Marcus. Surrounded by other confident parents, she felt like a shadow, invisible among vibrant conversations, while her heart sank within the walls of unfulfilled aspirations. She wished for the strength to stand tall, to share her ideas, yet her shoulders sagged under the burden of relentless disappointment. As Tom mopped the hallway in silence, he caught sight of a notepad left on an abandoned desk. Curious, he picked it up, flipping through the carefully crafted pages filled with strategic ideas brimming with potential. Each paragraph spoke with the intensity of ambition, and he could almost feel her frustration radiating off the paper. In an instant, he felt an urge to connect, to lift her spirit as she trudged through her battles alone. With hesitant determination, he scribbled a note, leaving behind a spark of encouragement, a reminder of hard work's reward tucked within her ideas. The anxiety surged through him as he slipped it between her notes. What if it wasn't enough? What if she never found it? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, for Sarah, finding that note was miraculous, a stark contrast to her feelings of worthlessness. Her heart raced with new possibilities, igniting a flicker of hope she had nearly buried. Who would leave such encouragement for someone like her? The emotional buoyancy struggled against her debilitating self-doubt. Determined yet afraid, she wanted to prove herself remarkable, to embody the drive she often admired in others. But as she reshaped her presentation with newfound confidence, anxiety festered within Tom. Each day he found himself returning to that moment, contemplating the ripple he initiated, uncertain of what it would lead to. The juxtaposition of their lives, each locked in a cycle of relentless struggle, weighed heavily on Tom's heart. Both lived in a world where acknowledgement felt like an unreachable star, the pressure mounting with every passing moment, curiosity twisting their paths, and an inevitable encounter lingering, just out of reach. Questions enveloped them as their lives veered dangerously close. Would his encouragement be the catalyst Sarah needed? And what impact would her success hold for Tom in embracing his own worth? As their delicate narratives wove together, the tension grew thick in the air, leaving both characters on the precipice of change, uncertain of what awaited them next. As Sarah stood before her mirror that evening, the reflection staring back was unrecognizable. She had spent years blending into the background, allowing her voice to be overshadowed by louder, more assertive colleagues. Today left an imprint. She could still hear the scratch of the pen on her presentation notes, the note she found invigorating her spirit like a sudden downpour after a drought. It was time to shed the mantle of invisibility and claim her narrative. Determination coursed through her veins as she practiced in front of the mirror. The words flowed more fluidly now, her throat untightening as she articulated her thoughts. It was a simple change, but her laughter echoed back at her, resonating with newfound confidence. Sarah even began to scold herself for year after year of self-doubt. Who was she to be afraid? On the other side of town, Tom faced challenges of his own. The anticipation of possibly having sparked something meaningful into existence churned in his gut. He sensed a shift within himself, an inkling of hope. Could he see a future in which he played a larger role, not just for Emily, but within his world? He resolved to give himself an opportunity to break through the monotony of cleaning floors and changing trash bags. A simple plan formed. He would apply for a local community college course in business management. The thought came with a palpable weight, humorously daunting yet oddly inviting as the days bled into one another. Both Sarah and Tom began to act on their ambitions. The pressure of life seemed to dissipate, leaving them energized by possibility. Sarah approached her boss with her reshaped proposal, her body language screaming confidence. For the first time, her voice quivered not from fear but from a rare exhilaration. Tom registered for classes with perhaps the smallest sense of self-worth yet, feeling laughably underqualified among other students he imagined were bursting with ambition. He followed through with his semester's payment plan, each monthly installment a symbol of commitment to his dreams. The fear of failure lingered, whispering cruel insecurities, but the taste of action stoked a new flame. Tom had decided to carve another path for himself. Despite their strides, they remained ignorant of how interconnected their journeys were. One evening, as Sarah prepared for an important meeting, the culmination of weeks of hard preparation, she strolled into her kitchen and reached for her phone. There it was, an unknown message containing the encouragement from Tom, reappearing in her mind as something profound. It ignited a fierce determination within her. She would overcome, she would shine. Just as Sarah prepared to present her ideas to her superiors, Tom found himself standing quietly outside the community college hall, clutching an application form rather tightly. With each breath, he weighed the value of risk against the cost of remaining stagnant. The air was electric, tension taut like a drawn bowstring, each moment stretching closer to a reckoning that pivotal instant. As Sarah pulled into the conference room ready to deliver her presentation, Tom stepped through the door of that classroom, each decision amplifying the chance for fulfillment. Their paths had inevitably converged, two stories on the verge of intertwining, a moment thick with potential, and then, amidst the charged atmosphere of Sarah's meeting and the anxious anticipation in Tom's classroom, each was inadvertently thrust closer to the center of their respective challenges. What awaited them could redefine their futures, set against the backdrop of honest confrontations and the relentless pursuit of value. The knot in Tom's throat tightened. What if he faltered? What if Sarah stepped into that room and faced her dismissive peers yet again rejected? One thing was certain. Fortitude called them both into action, and they would hear it loud. Would they rise? Or would the weight of their fears pull them back into the shadows of obscurity? Inside the conference room, Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs, a wild drumbeat underscoring a vortex of emotions. The familiar faces of her colleagues scrutinized her, their expressions a mix of expectation and skepticism. She inhaled sharply, focusing on the smile she had welcomed in the mirror but was now fighting to maintain. It was an act of defiance against the voice that whispered harsh criticisms in her ear. Each moment stretched into eternity. She was teetering at the edge of transformation or retreat as she began her presentation. Sarah noticed her hands were clammy, but her voice carried a clarity that hadn't existed before. She structured her argument with precision, the statistics rolling off her tongue effortlessly. Every gesture she made seemed to fill the room with a flicker of energy. She had long been a participant in the meetings. She now led her insights valuable, her presence undeniable. Yet the old fears tried to creep back. What if they didn't care? What if they ridiculed her ideas? Casting her gaze over her audience, Sarah recognized a familiar face. It was Peter, the senior manager. She had often felt the weight of his disdain before, but now she used that experience as fuel. It was time to reclaim the narrative. This proposed initiative isn't just about the numbers. It's about reshaping our approach to customer engagement, she stated firmly, her confidence resonating in the room. The words hung there, suspended like the hopes cradled in her chest. The energy in the room shifted slightly. She could sense it. Meanwhile, Tom sat among a gathering of unknown faces, surrounded by students equally eager and uncertain. His stomach twisted with apprehension. This was college, an arena charged with ambition, where dreams mingled with self-doubt. The professor strode in, and Thomas' mind buzzed with what-if scenarios. What if he failed to grasp the material? What if everyone was better than him? But as the first lesson began, Tom felt an unexpected spark. Perhaps this was an environment that could breed change, a chance for mentorship, for growth. Hours slipped away as he delved deeper into the coursework, laboriously linking concepts together, emerging as a participant rather than a bystander. It was exhilarating and nerve-wracking, each piece of knowledge latching onto a newfound sense of self. He realized he belonged here, not only as a janitor-turned-student but as someone on a path to discovering his untapped potential. Back in the conference room, Sarah was wrapping up her presentation, and the response was more animated than she could have envisioned. Colleague after colleague started nodding, some even leaning in, the atmosphere thick with curiosity. When Peter finally spoke, she held her breath, certain he would puncture the bubble of her triumph. But instead, he articulated support, weighing the practicality of her vision against the backdrop of the company's objectives. I see value in your proposal, Sarah. I think we can implement this by next quarter. The words felt surreal, like a distant echo from a vibrant dream. Elated yet cautious, Sarah accepted the acknowledgement, understanding that this was just the beginning. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges. She would have to maintain this momentum. As she stepped out of the conference room, her mind flitted back to Tom and the power of genuine encouragement he had unknowingly provided. Tom exited his first class, buoyed by newfound resolve. He still felt like an imposter at times, but each lesson chipped away at that perception. There was a growing determination within him to seize opportunities and confront his fears head-on, just as Sarah had. Life was no longer about merely surviving. It was about thriving. As they found themselves at crucial junctures of development, each gained clarity on the importance of connection and support. But neither had foreseen how soon their paths would rejoin, altering the trajectory of their respective journeys in ways they could never have predicted. And as Tom's phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, filled with a contagious excitement and a hint at collaboration, he couldn't shake the feeling that the next chapter of both their stories was about to unfold in an unforeseen and powerful way. Would they blend their newfound courage to foster mutual growth, or would their individual fears threaten to unravel their progress? Stepping out of the conference room, Sarah felt a current of energy racing through her veins, igniting a fire she hadn't known existed. Her strides grew bolder, each step resonating with the thrill of having found her voice. The echoes of Peter's supportive words played in her mind like a victorious anthem. She had crossed a threshold, but uncertainty loomed at the edges of her celebration. What would success demand of her next? And would she have the fortitude to sustain this newfound confidence? Later that afternoon, Sarah settled at her desk, a swirl of ideas and enthusiasm buzzing in her brain. She started sketching plans based on her proposal, relishing the opportunity to contribute in ways she hadn't imagined possible. Yet, as the minutes turned into hours, the magnified expectations pressed down upon her. The anticipation of executing her vision filled her with thrill, but the specter of self-doubt flickered in her peripheral vision, threatening to snuff out her light. Meanwhile, Tom couldn't shake the anticipation that danced beneath his skin as he sat down in a cafe, laptop open, ready to dive into his next set of coursework. He had felt invigorated and challenged by the professors, but hidden beneath that excitement was the dread that he might falter. With his previous life as a janitor looming in the back of his mind, he worried that his ambitious organizational theories would crumble under scrutiny. What if he wasn't smart enough? Could he really rise above his past and thrive in this new world? That evening, Sarah's phone buzzed with Tom's message, a simple inquiry about software recommendations for his project. A grin brightened her face, and she felt a rush of camaraderie. She had not known him long, yet they shared an unspoken understanding of pushing past limitations. Quickly, she began typing out a response, devoting time to outline comprehensive software options while reflecting on how their stories intertwined. Returning to work the following day would be a test of her resolve. Would her colleagues still regard her with respect after the spotlight shifted back onto the regular routine? The thought was unsettling, but she buried the anxiety in favor of focusing on her goals. There was a strategic meeting on the horizon where she could further the discussions initiated during her presentation. She felt a familiar tension threading through her body, the kind that often hinted at doubt, but now it felt different. It was a reminder that vulnerability could give birth to undeniable strength. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Tom absorbed knowledge like a sponge. He tackled every concept with ferocity, building a foundation that he could stand on. With each lesson, he began to recognize patterns, strategic frameworks that connected his past experiences with his current ambitions. The realization he was, indeed, capable of mastery sparked something profound within him. He refused to let the remnants of self-doubt restrict his potential any longer. Days later, as both Sarah and Tom prepared for their respective challenges, a pivotal meeting for her and an upcoming presentation for him, mutual encouragement became the lifeblood of their evolving journeys. The distance between their ambitions and the fear of failure dwindled with each exchange. They began to synchronize their aspirations, supporting each other from distinct corners of the workforce and academia. Sarah found herself yearning for Tom's fresh perspective. She was already crafting plans for how they could collaboratively operate, blending their strengths to tackle industry hurdles together. Yet, this budding alliance was fraught with ambiguity. Would their collaboration lead to professional elevation, or would it unravel under the weight of their insecurities? As Sarah sat poised to deliver her strategic insights at the meeting, the stakes felt higher than ever. She sensed Tom's influence, a lifeline pulling her forward, but the pressure intensified. The power of their combined journeys had driven her thus far, but could she sustain that momentum? With the future hanging delicately in the balance, the moment arrived for Sarah to confront her reality. She proclaimed her intent to embrace the unexpected and unleash her potential fully. But was she ready for the steep climb ahead? And could Tom's resolve stand up against the perils of doubt that accompanied collaboration? The clock ticked ominously, echoing the question of whether together they could weather the storm looming on the horizon, waiting to test not only their professional aspirations but their burgeoning trust in one another. As Sarah rose to speak, her heart raced. The conference room buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and skepticism, the weight of expectation pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. But something within her had shifted, and she clung to that spark, allowing it to illuminate her path forward. She began her presentation, weaving together her thoughts with a sense of clarity that felt refreshingly foreign. There was energy in her words, a reflection of the courage she had summoned. Yet, just as quickly as it surged, doubt crept back in. Would they listen? Would they see her vision as valid? A flurry of what-ifs spiraled through her mind, momentarily threatening to derail her focus. She felt the walls close in, the faces of her colleagues blurring in her peripheral view. But then she remembered Tom's unwavering belief in her, and she steadied herself. Perhaps she could transform uncertainty into a foundation of strength. Meanwhile, Tom was meticulously reviewing the day's lectures, keenly aware of his upcoming presentation. He had spent countless hours refining his approach, internalizing the theories and frameworks he had gathered from various sources. But with mastery came the burden of expectation. His pride was balanced on a fragile pedestal. What if he stumbled? He visualized himself standing in front of the class, poised to discuss his vision, but feared the history of failure tugging at his collar. Those hours spent alongside Sarah had ignited a new resolve in him, but he still wrestled with echoes of self-doubt. Driven by a burgeoning sense of purpose, he focused on consolidating his ideas, threading his past experiences through his present work. He asked himself probing questions: what did he truly want to convey? He knew he had the potential to inspire. He merely needed to uncover the courage to express it. Upon walking into his classroom, Tom felt a shift in the atmosphere. The weight of expectation was palpable, a reminder that this was more than just an assignment. The stakes felt personal. He took a deep breath and centered his thoughts, envisioning Sarah as support. She believed in him. Perhaps this belief could be the catalyst for his transformation. As the hour crept closer, both Sarah and Tom stood on the precipice of their respective challenges, divided by their environments but unified by a common thread: their quest for self-discovery. They were tensile examples of how ambition wove itself through vulnerability, how the foundation of personal growth relied not solely on individual strength but on collective encouragement. For Sarah, the culmination of her presentation was a moment of revelation. As she deftly navigated challenging questions thrown her way, something deep within her clearly articulated her insights. Each answer ground her vision more firmly into reality. As her colleagues began to nod in recognition of her perspective, a swell of pride surged through her in the quiet aftermath of Thomas' presentation. However, he felt a different kind of tension. He had performed well. He held his class's attention, challenged their perceptions, but lingering doubts clouded the edges of his success. What if he had missed the essence of his message? He replayed moments in his mind where he felt he could have dug deeper, connected his past insight with his fresh knowledge. Preparing to confront this inner turmoil, he forced the gnawing thoughts aside. He had progressed, and that was what mattered. Later, as their respective challenges unfolded, Sarah and Tom found themselves exchanging texts, little notes of affirmation forged through this newly kindled partnership. It was as if their support bridged the gap between their aspirations, making the climb less daunting. Yet the fear of failure lingered. Each of them faced nuanced dilemmas that undercut their confidence. With victories came the weight of fear and uncertainty. Sitting in her office late that evening reflecting on the day, Sarah envisioned the larger implications of her ideas. Would they garner support and change an aspect of their industry? Or would they fall flat, rendering her bold proclamation moot? She wrestled with the prospect, a sense of urgency urging her to press onward. At the same time, Tom, grappling with his doubts, found solace in the consensus echoed in his classroom. Did his experience matter? Was he setting himself up for future growth or simply an exercise in facing old fears? The climax of their challenging days lingered in the air with uncertainty, but a pressing realization began to form within both of them. It was time to confront the reality of their intertwining journeys, to face the contradictions that had once paralyzed them. The future lay ahead, vague yet pregnant with possibility. But as they sat separately, laden with revelations, another question loomed larger than their dreams: could they reconcile their inner demons together? Or would the weight of their pasts fracture the new bridge they had built? With these thoughts swirling, they each prepared for the next challenge that awaited them, the unexpected twists in their evolving narratives. As dawn broke the next morning, Sarah found herself wrestling with an unfamiliar sensation, the thrill of possibility mingled with the pressure to act. The recognition she earned the previous day was fleeting but transformative. In the solitude of her office, the soft hum of her laptop became a backdrop for her racing thoughts instead of a distraction. She was at a crossroads, compelled to decide whether to lean into her burgeoning professional identity or retreat into comfort. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, poised to draft an article that could further her cause, yet the words eluded her. Each sentence felt like an echo of her past self, a voice that whispered doubts masked as caution. Could she truly make an impact in the industry? Did she have the tenacity to sustain this momentum? Those questions pricked at her resolve. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from Tom flashed across the screen, reminding her of the support they had built. His words were cryptic yet encouraging, a gentle nudge toward introspection. As she read, Sarah felt emboldened, but a gnawing fear settled in. What if Tom's faith in her was misplaced? With a deep breath, Sarah leaned into her unease. She began to jot down ideas, weaving them into a narrative that spoke to the lessons learned over the past days. The hesitations she felt became sources of grit, and as she typed, her confidence unfurled like wings. The weight of her insecurities began to lessen, replaced by an undeniable urge to break free from her self-imposed confines. Simultaneously, Tom sat at his own desk, harboring the remnants of doubt from the previous day. He replayed the moments that lingered on the fringe of his consciousness, the moments where he felt he connected, and those where he stumbled. The challenge now lay in utilizing those experiences to fuel his next steps rather than hinder them. As he reflected, he realized growth didn't stem solely from flawless presentations but also from vulnerability and the willingness to learn from imperfections. The decision to seek feedback from trusted colleagues took root in his mind. He recognized this as an opportunity not just to refine his approach but to build resilience. Each conversation would be a chance to confront the questions that haunted him. Had he missed the mark? Essentially, what more could he give? This strategic pivot felt simultaneously daunting and invigorating as Sarah completed her article. A sense of accomplishment washed over her. But it was soon followed by a haunting thought: what if she faced blowback from industry peers? What if her words were dismissed, reiterating the fears she had battled for so long? But as she contemplated this potential fallout, she realized a crucial insight. Growth often necessitated stepping outside the norm. The risk mattered more than the comfort of silence. Days rolled into one another as Tom began reaching out for feedback. Each time he took the step to engage, an unexpected camaraderie forged itself with colleagues who, too, struggled with their insecurities. They shared stories of fear and self-doubt, and in those confessions, Tom discovered strength both in their collective vulnerability and in his own emerging narrative. He heard echoes of his past in their experiences and found clarity in addressing his own fears head-on. Simultaneously, as Sarah prepared to publish her article, another question arose, threatening to eclipse her excitement. Was she ready to face the criticism that her ideas might inspire? The moment she hit send would feel like dropping a stone into an abyss. Its ripples could either empower or consume her. Both Sarah and Tom stood on the edge of their evolving journeys, their paths intertwined yet distinct. They faced challenges that would test their resolve and redefine their ambitions. As they ventured into this new chapter, the sensations of doubt and hope wove together in unpredictable ways, and an underlying truth emerged amid the shadows of vulnerability. Lay the seeds of their greatest transformations. But as they took their first steps forward, an unsettling realization crept in. Would the support they found in one another withstand the trials ahead, or would it fracture under the weight of scrutiny and fear? The tension tethered them to their shared aspirations, yearning for validation but dreading the eye of the storm. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the office in hues of orange and pink, Sarah sat frozen before the screen, her article waiting to be unleashed into the world. The anticipation danced in her chest, electrifying and terrifying. Each heartbeat whispered affirmations, yet the shadow of doubt loomed larger with every passing moment. What if the world rejected her thoughts? What if she was merely an imposter masquerading as a voice of insight? To shake off the paralysis, she took a deep breath and reviewed her work. The words, once hesitant and fragmented, now surged with clarity. She felt intertwined with her narrative, the essence of her journey woven into every line. They were not just sentences. They were declarations of her intent and identity. But with each declaration came a mechanized ticking of a clock, counting down to her imminent leap into visibility. That in an attempt to calm the tempest in her mind, she flicked her gaze to the small window behind her desk, where city lights began to twinkle against the encroaching night. The other office buildings were bathed in a communal glow, illuminating the sheer vibrancy of ambition that resided within their walls. For a moment, she allowed her thoughts to drift to the stories contained within those buildings, fellow dreamers grappling with similar uncertainties. Meanwhile, Tom was navigating a different terrain, armed with the feedback he had accumulated over the week. Each conversation with his colleagues had transformed their shared vulnerabilities into a conduit of growth. Insightful comments offered him a new lens through which to view his work, and with each nugget of advice, the fog that obscured his path slowly began to dissipate. Yet today he was faced with a new challenge, a presentation he had dubbed the test of conviction. This was where he would merge his rejuvenated confidence with the knowledge he had gleaned from his peers. As he paced the floor, rehearsing his delivery in front of an audience that only existed in his imagination, he still felt tension curling in his stomach. There was a critical contrast forming in his mind, the performance he dreamed of executing coupled with the fear of reversion to his previous self, timid, unacknowledged. To conquer this moment would not only fuel his ambitions but also solidify the newfound momentum he believed he had. With purpose ignited, he prepared to find his voice, one that recalled the stories of his colleagues, creating a tapestry of shared experiences. Facing them would mean confronting the possibility of failure, but it also promised connection and invitation to resilience. Real growth meant first accepting that vulnerability was not a weakness, but rather a catalyst for inspiration. As the hours unfolded, Sarah readied herself for the inevitable click of the publish button. With each passing second, her earlier resolve splintered under the weight of potential backlash. What could she face? Scrutiny, dismissal, perhaps even ridicule from those she looked up to. Every instinct told her to hesitate, to retreat. Yet she realized that in this moment lay her greatest opportunity, a chance to assert her presence, to start redefining the boundaries of her profession. She recalled Thomas' messages of encouragement, thoughts that highlighted the beauty of transformation born from risk. Together, they had shared the weight of their fears, and now it was time to honor that exchange by positioning herself within the discourse. A decisive breath fortified her as she hovered above the button. Just as clarity enveloped her doubts, Thomas' thoughts resounded within her. It was time for action, a deliberate step forward that cast aside the shadows of uncertainty. She pressed send. The email vanished into the abyss she had feared but welcomed. It floated into the hands of the industry she aspired to impact, rippling outwards with potential as Sarah sighed in relief. Tension replaced by exhilaration, her phone buzzed. An incoming call filled the silence. Thomas' name flashed on the screen. Unearthed anxiety swirled as she answered, unsure if he was about to share his own pivotal moment or merely check in. Was he ready for the challenges that lay ahead, or would this be a moment of doubt? Hey, Sarah. His voice crackled, brimming with excitement. I just wrapped up my presentation, and I think but before he could finish, a knock reverberated through Sarah's office, pulling her attention abruptly. Who could it be? The door creaked open, revealing an unexpected figure, someone from her past, holding the potential to either uplift or disrupt everything she had just embarked upon. The uncertain fabric of her transformation stared back at her, and with it came the question, was she prepared to face the very obstacles she had fought to rise above? Sarah's heart raced as she took in the figure at her door, a face from her past that stirred memories both bittersweet and painful. It was Emily, a former colleague whose trajectory had seemingly skyrocketed, while Sarah felt tethered to her doubts. The colors of the sunset outside dimmed as the room filled with an almost palpable tension. Hey, Sarah. Emily's voice held an unexpected warmth, contrasting with their last encounter. Mind if I come in? What brings you here, Em? Sarah's voice wavered slightly, echoing her inner turmoil. Would this be a congratulatory visit, a chance to rekindle an old friendship, or an emotional ambush? Once they had been allies in ambition, but the dynamics had shifted over time. Emily had quickly ascended the ranks, her latest publications praised while Sarah grappled with her own skills. Yet, beneath the surface, Sarah felt pulled toward the possibility of validation or perhaps the chance to share her newfound fears. Just thought I'd check in after seeing your recent announcement online, Emily replied, crossing the threshold into the cluttered space of Sarah's office. You're making waves. I wanted to congratulate you. Thanks, Sarah managed to say, but her mind buzzed with apprehension. What did Emily really want? The air crackled with questions left unsaid. Each missed opportunity from their past echoed between them, amplifying Sarah's sense of inadequacy. She debated internally this moment could slip into small talk or lead somewhere deeper. Choice and consequence hung like thread-woven fabric, ready to unravel into vulnerability. I wanted to share something, Emily said suddenly, her expression growing serious. I don't always have it figured out, either. I just know what it's like to feel lost. I struggled for a long time before I finally found my footing. Are you feeling okay about everything? It was uncharacteristic for Emily to probe like this, and it ushered in a wave of catharsis mixed with skepticism. How much of what Emily had achieved was genuine success? Was this a moment of camaraderie? Or did she sense Sarah's lingering doubts and choose to capitalize on them? I guess I am okay. I just sent out my first article after a debilitating block, Sarah answered, her voice steadier as she embraced the candor. But honestly, fake confidence only leads to more insecurity. What if I just missed the mark? Emily's brows furrowed. It's not about perfection, but growth. You matter. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in your voice. Sarah felt a spark, a reminder that camaraderie could also ground their individual journeys. Perhaps Emily's visit wasn't wholly a threat, but an invitation to collaborate on healing old wounds as they navigated the modern landscape of ambition together. Thank you for that. I needed to hear it, Sarah said, feeling a shift within herself as she opened the door slightly to this renewed connection. Yet, in the back of her mind, a flicker of doubt lingered. Was this newfound openness a bridge or an opportunity for undermining her own worth? Was she willing to let Emily close enough to influence her, for better or worse? You're my friend. I want to help, Sarah. Emily pressed, her earnestness palpable. We make a great team. In that moment, the potential for collaboration dawned. Could they merge their experiences to create something worthwhile together? Sarah hesitated, contemplating the blend of past grievances and the allure of shared triumphs. But just as an answer formed, her phone buzzed again, cutting through the burgeoning connection like a knife. A message from Tom, unraveling curiosity. Need to talk. Urgent. The urgency rattled through her like the hint of a storm brewing on the horizon. Was she prepared to confront a new conflict with Tom after this unexpected reconnection with Emily? What awaited her just beyond the fragile balance of her past and future? Sarah's heart raced again, caught between the chance to embrace a potential partnership and the need to confront lingering uncertainties. In this multifaceted tangle of emotions, she sensed the walls closing in. Around her a formidable gambit lay ahead, testing her resolve yet again. The time had come to face not just the past, but the complexity of her present choices. What revelation would Tom's message bring? What path awaited her from this moment forward, with both Emily and Tom now intertwining in the tapestry of her uncertainty? As tension coiled inside her, she dared to imagine what power might rise from embracing it all. Sarah could feel her pulse quicken as she stared at the glowing screen of her phone, Tom's name flickering ominously against the backdrop of her previous conversation. The weight of uncertainty settled heavily in her chest, blocking out the warmth of Emily's words. The flickering light felt more like an accusation than a prelude to a discussion. Do you have to answer that? Emily asked, her tone shifting slightly as she glanced at Sarah's face. The tension in the room thickened, suffocating the moment they had just begun to carve out. Yes, Sarah replied, her voice firmer than she felt. I need to know what he wants. As she pressed the button to open the message, a sense of dread washed over her. The text read, I got some news about the project we've been working on. Can you meet? It was vague, yet the formality of it added to her unease. Tom's professional demeanor often harbored personal stakes, and Sarah didn't want to delve into potential fallout from someone she once considered a friend. Everything okay? Emily's concern knitted the space between them, something Sarah craved yet feared to explore. Just about the project, she murmured, forcing a smile to mask her rising anxiety. The past year had been a roller coaster ride of ambition and hesitation, and Tom was a constant in that world, a constant reminder of skills left unchecked and opportunities barely seized. I can see something's bothering you, Emily pressed, her eyes scanning the contours of Sarah's face. Maybe it's time to confront those feelings head-on. Those words struck a chord deep within Sarah. Confrontation, she realized, was not just limited to Tom's message. It extended to the very foundation of her self-worth. In this flash of clarity, she understood that Emily's presence wasn't merely a nostalgic echo of what was once shared. It was a living reminder to actively navigate through her hills of doubt. I guess it's easier to avoid difficult conversations, Sarah admitted, her voice softer now, surrendering to the inevitable dive into her own psyche. I keep waiting for the right moment to have them, but the right moment never really comes. Does it? Emily's eyes gleamed with understanding. It rarely does. Growth isn't born from comfort, Sarah. It comes from leaning into those discomforts. Inspired by Emily's candidness, Sarah felt a stir of determination brewing within her, a flame flickering back to life. She realized the urgency of choosing courage over complacency. Maybe I should just meet with Tom. See what this is about. The grip of fear had held her too tightly for too long. With a renewed sense of clarity, she decided her life couldn't continue being defined by past grievances or future uncertainties. It was time to take a step towards her own narrative, redefine her voice within her career, and tackle the relationships tethering her to insecurity. Will you be okay? Emily's tone was gentler now, a mix of encouragement and genuine concern. I have to be. Sarah took a deep breath, determined to approach whatever conversation awaited with strength. I owe it to myself to discover where this path leads. Yet beneath her resolve lay a lingering anxiety. Just how monumental could Tom's news be? Was it an opportunity or yet another setback waiting to unfold? The possibilities loomed ahead like dark clouds, ominous yet filled with the potential for renewal. As she reached for her jacket, a new resolve crystallized within her, ready to peel away layers of self-doubt and breathe life into her ambitions. Let's get coffee after, okay? She asked Emily, her eyes sparkling with an uncharacteristic spark of hope. Absolutely. You'll need it. As she stepped out, the night air felt charged, a fitting metaphor for the dawning transformation Sarah sensed within herself. The world outside crackled with possibilities, while her heart thudded in excitement, the unpredictable strumming of a new beat. But just as she settled into the night's embrace, a new message pinged in her pocket, this time from Tom again. I hope you're ready for what I have to say. Each word was a clarion call, plunging her deeper into a vortex of anxiety and anticipation for what lay ahead. Would this reveal unveil a world of opportunities? Or was it a sinister twist in her unfolding story? As trepidation knotted in her gut, one thing remained clear. This journey was just beginning, and Sarah was about to dive headfirst into the storm. As Sarah stepped into the cafe, she could almost smell the bittersweet aroma of opportunity hanging in the air. The recent developments had set off a seismic shift within her. The uncertainty laden in her heart had been replaced with a budding confidence, a momentum that she was eager to sustain. She spotted Tom seated at a cozy corner table, eyes focused on his notes yet glancing toward the door, anticipation flickering across his expression. Hey Sarah, I'm glad you made it, he said, standing to greet her, a mixture of excitement and nerves evident in his voice. Oh, I needed to. Your message sounded significant, she replied, settling into the chair across from him. The intimacy of the moment urged them to connect deeply, beyond their respective journeys. Tom took a breath, gathering his thoughts. I finally received feedback for the project. They want to move forward with our idea. The announcement radiated joy, familiarity rekindling as if the weight of their shared aspirations had sparked something potent between them. Seriously? That's amazing, Tom. Sarah's heart surged. Their late-night brainstorming sessions and visions of collaboration had birthed this moment. But a part of her couldn't help feeling the shadows of envy stir, bolstered by her own apprehensions. So what's next? Tom leaned in, direct yet soft. I'd love for us to present this together. You, me, our combined strengths. We've been through quite a journey, and I believe our narratives complement each other. What do you think? That invitation sent waves of warmth through her. She thought back to the moments discarded in the past, their encouragement a beacon to navigate through her fears. I believe we can make an impactful presentation together. But I must admit, I'm still working through a lot regarding my own voice, she confessed, knowing well how intertwined their paths had become. A knowing smile flitted across Tom's face. Growth often thrives in the discomfort. You shouldn't shy away from that. It will only make the message more authentic. As they mapped out their presentation, Sarah felt herself transforming. Tom's belief in her eclipsed her lingering doubts, propelling her to embrace the narrative of her experience. Each collaborative exchange became an act of reclamation, hovering between both their stories whilst weaving them into one resilient conduit of purpose. They had conquered self-doubt through action, both forging ahead, each step deeper in resolve. Days turned into a flurry of meetings, honing their ideas, practicing, and reshaping their project. The preparatory discussions opened avenues they hadn't expected. Sarah sensed herself becoming not just a participant but a vital contributor, her thoughts tangible, her confidence palpable. The day of the presentation arrived, and as they stood side by side before their colleagues, Sarah's earlier fears felt like whispers lost in the cliffside wind. She glanced at her notes, but the cues felt secondary. Instead, she focused on Tom's earnest gaze, a reflection of partner-led synergy. "This initiative is more than just ideas on paper," Tom began. "It's about marrying our practical insights with introspective reflections that challenge the norm." Then it was Sarah's turn. She stepped forward, grounding herself in her observations, breathing life into her vision. "Incorporating authentic engagement not only highlights our commitment to the project, but holds potential for a transformative connection with our audience. This initiative is not merely about results. It's about cultivating relationships." As they concluded, the room erupted into applause. Colleagues leaned in, nodding, and murmuring affirmations that validated their efforts. The energy transformed. It wasn't just about formal recognition but intrinsic growth. They had carved new spaces for themselves within old walls, stepping into a realm where both acknowledgement and vulnerability converged, blending ambitions seamlessly. In the aftermath of the presentation, accolades flooded in, affirming their partnership as valuable contributors. "That was stellar, Peter," the senior manager exclaimed, a proud smile stretching across his face. "We need more of this collaboration in our future strategies." With validation ringing in her ears, Sarah turned to Tom, a spontaneous smile lighting up her face. "We actually did it. I really articulated my vision," she breathed, realization dawning upon her as if stepping away from fog. Tom chuckled. "You proved not just to others but to yourself that you are capable." Together, we've captured something meaningful. As they celebrated their victory that evening, Sarah reflected on the transformation encapsulated in these past weeks. No longer did the shadows of self-doubt dictate her narrative. Instead, she emerged powerful. A determined voice woven through layers of connection. The doubts and fears now transformed into staples of resilience, rather than stumbling blocks. Tom, too, held a sense of solid confidence. He knew his previous life as a janitor hadn't defined him. It informed a more robust self. They had both achieved remarkable personal growth, not only surmounting their fears but redefining what success looked like collaboratively. In that moment of fulfillment, a deeper message crystallized within Sarah. Her journey wasn't simply about recognition. It was an intricate tapestry built on trust, collaboration, and the courage to engage vulnerability. This realization sparked a potent idea. She would begin to mentor others just as Tom had unwittingly mentored her. Perhaps she could guide those in need of a spark, fueling confidence in their pursuits. The future gleamed brightly, each step promising contribution and connection. Their pasts, fraught with challenges, had converged beautifully, illuminating pathways forward. Yet as they reveled in their success, unanswered questions lingered. What further heights could they reach? What other connections awaited? But as Sarah clinked glasses with Tom, the overarching truth shone brilliantly. They were ready to embrace whatever came next. Now is the time for you to be part of these emotional stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.